Can a fanbase ruin something? Well, yeah, in some cases I believe they can. There have been times when I've seen people blame a fanbase for no good reason, claiming that they ruined a series for them when in reality, it wasn't their fault at all. It's also common practice to see people make huge assumptions about something's entire fanbase, as if everyone who consumes that content is equally crazy. A little while ago, I put out a tweet saying, a fanbase can't ruin a show. If you don't like the fans, don't interact with them. The show should be judged separate from the fans. The biggest problem with the tweet, to me at least, is that I used the word can't, as to say there is no conceivable way for a fanbase to ruin a show. I now have to retract that statement. But probably the second biggest issue with the tweet is that I didn't make it clear what exactly I was addressing. These three sentences were addressing two different things. The first and last sentence were addressing a show's objective value, and the middle sentence was addressing a show's personal value. So I'll quickly talk about each sentence in a more proper order. A fanbase can't ruin a show. The number one thing that makes me take back this statement is feedback. Fans give feedback, and it's almost sure to affect the outcome and overall score of a show in its totality. Feedback can really only apply to the future installments of content though. If the first few seasons of a show were great, they were great, and nothing that comes afterwards should affect the individual score as those early seasons were given. But the overall value of a series may go down if the fans affect the later seasons enough. If a portion of the fans cause the director of a show to quit, they would have to replace him with someone else. The person replacing the original director may not be as educated on how to make this specific series as good as it could have turned out. But that's just one example. I've noticed that the fans of the Terminator franchise are really good at ignoring the later movies, proving that future installments of something cannot and will not ruin its previous installments. What I was really trying to say with the tweet though is that something's objective value can't be diminished because of the fans. If someone is making a review of a new video game, there should be absolutely no bias against it because of the fans. In an objective and factual sense, the fans can't ruin a concluded piece of content. But sadly, I see critics include the fans from time to time, whether they help the product or diminish it. The score that you give a movie shouldn't go down because of the fans, but that's in an entirely objective sense, whereas we have our own opinions and experiences. I entirely agree that someone's personal experience with a show can be greatly hindered. I know for a fact that I wouldn't enjoy something as much as I could have if it was spoiled for me. And as another example, if you're stuck in public school, the repetition of different references and jokes make it extremely annoying to you, thus ruining the hilarity of the original joke. And rightfully so. With something like that, there's basically nothing that you can do to avoid these kind of fans. There are two ways you can possibly cope with them. Either one, you have a high enough tolerance to ignore them, or two, you go along with them and enjoy it. The show should be judged separate from the fans. This remains true. It's very easy to judge the fans separate from the show. To give an easy and comprehensible comparison, let's replace the show with cheesecake. If somebody murders a person in order to get cheesecake, who goes to jail, the murderer or the cheesecake? Whose fault is it, the cheesecake's or the murderer's? The point is, someone's individual actions must be judged separate from the show they watch, even if their actions were in reference to said show. If the person is willing to murder someone over cheesecake, they would probably be willing to do the same thing for any other food they equally liked. What I'm trying to say here is that crazy fans will be crazy, so it doesn't really matter what show they watch. And you certainly shouldn't judge all fans based on the actions of one person. So when someone says, the fanbase ruined it for me, it would be proper to correct them by explaining that only some of the fanbase ruined it for them. If you don't like the fans, don't interact with them. As I've already stated, it might be quite hard to ignore them in some situations, but this honestly only applies to real-life situations. It's entirely different online. If you don't like what someone is posting, unfollow them or unsubscribe from them. It's not hard at all. For a while now, I've been watching this YouTuber named Elvis the Alien. He has a series named People Ruin Blank. He'll post a tweet asking people to send him weird pictures and videos that would ruin something. He reviews these items on the series. This is a perfect example of what not to do if you don't want something to be ruined for you. I dislike seeing people use bad fan art or bad fanfiction as reason why something was ruined for them. Keep in mind, you have to actively search for fan art, videos, fiction, and whatever else you claim to be ruining the show for you. It's not the fans' fault, it's your own. You are ruining the show for yourself by searching for these things. But even then, unless someone is spoiling the story for you, it's really hard for me to see how this in any way ruins a show. I've seen people hate on games for the sole fact of its fanbase. I know because I used to do that. Just look at games like Sonic, Undertale, FNAF, and Minecraft. These are all games that have been known to have bad fan bases. But the idea that you're gonna let the fan base ruin what could have been potential hours of enjoyment is ludicrous. So while you're over there complaining about the fans, I'll just sit back, enjoy the show, and not let other people so easily ruin my opinions.